Okay, now in this lesson we're going to take a look at long division of polynomials, but in order to do that we've got to reach way back in our files to 3rd grade, because I believe that's about the time when we started looking at long division. And so we need to just remind ourselves of what the process looks like before we get into doing long division with variables. So you're not going to have any problems with your homework, I'm just reminding you of what long division looks like. So I would take a 2 going into this large number, 134,000. We're going to take our 13 starting and divide it by the 2. So we do as many, so it can't go into the 1, so we look at the 13. So 2 goes into 13 6 times, and then what you would do is you take the 2 and you times it by the 6 to get 12. And then you don't add those, what you're supposed to do is subtract them, of course, and then this would give you 1, and then you bring down the 14, bring down the 4 to make 14. Then you look at the 2 and say, how many times 2 go into 14? And you're at 7, okay? And then 7 times 2 is 14. And then you don't add, of course, you subtract, and that gives you 0. You bring down the 5. 2 goes into 5 2 times, and you get 4. And then you bring subtraction, of course, and that gives you 1. And then you bring down the 6. You get 2 goes into 16 8 times. And then you multiply 2 times the 8, and you get 16 again. And those subtract, and you get 0. And you would bring down the 5. Sorry, I ran out of room. And 2 goes into 5 2 times again. And then, so that would multiply by the 2 to get 4. And you subtract those, and that gives you 1. Now 1, of course, is your remainder. And so you would put R1, or what you could do is put the 1 over top of what you're dividing by, which is the 2. So again, that may have felt like, oh yeah, I know how to do that, or maybe it was a good refresher for you, but we need to know that process in order to do these next problems with, of course, variables. So we're going to do long division with problems like this now. Even though it's written as vertical division, we need to rewrite it to be the m minus 2 on the outside of a division bar with 2m squared plus m minus 10. Now a couple of key features in this problem is that you do have descending order on the inside here. That's in descending order. And there's no variables missing. And what I mean by that is you've got m squared, m to the first power, m to the 0. So in other words, it goes 2, 1, none. Okay, it has to be like that on every problem when you do long division. Okay, so now what we look at is you don't worry about the minus 2, you just worry about the m and the first term on the inside. And you ask yourself, what would I multiply an m by to get 2m squared? And the answer to that is 2m. So if I multiply 2m times m, that would make 2m squared. So what I do is I make the 2m squared there, and then I distribute it by that m, and then I also distribute it to the negative 2. Now if I do that, negative 2 times 2m would give me negative 4m. So that is what I write here. So I distributed the 2m to the m to get this 2m squared, and then I distributed the 2m to the negative 2 to get the negative 4m. Okay, now I subtract, because just like our last problem, we want to go ahead and subtract right here. And what I do is I distribute the negative to the 2m, and I also make a minus sign on the 4m, so I subtract both of them. Now when you subtract the negative, it turns into a positive. So basically, you change both the signs. And so 2m squared minus m squared, you actually do the subtraction, those should cancel. And then I get m plus 4m, which should give me 5m. Now just like in our previous problem, now we take our negative 10 and bring it down. And now you're at the beginning step again. Now I look at the 5m, and I look at the m over here again, and ask myself, what do I multiply m by to get 5m? And the answer is 5. So you multiply 5 to the m, and then you multiply it to the negative 2, just like we did on this first time around. So now I multiply the 5 times the m, and that gives me 5m. And then I multiply the 5 times the negative 2, and that gives me negative 10. Okay, so I multiplied the 5 times the m to get this 5, and I multiplied the 5 times the negative 2 to get the negative 10. Now, once you do that, just like I did before, you have to change the sign because you're subtracting. So you change this sign and this sign to do subtraction, just like we did in our previous number problem. So now both of these cancel, and the answer from that subtraction is 0, which means there is a remainder of 0. There is no remainder. In other words, the m minus 2 went into the 2m squared plus m minus 10 evenly, and it went in 2m plus 5 times. Okay? So now, that's the answer for this problem. And what it's demonstrating is that I could actually take m minus 2 and multiply it by 2m plus 5, and the answer would be 2m squared plus m minus 10. If I FOILed, you would actually get that answer. So it's kind of a way of factoring using long division.